Hi, I'm Tammy Potter, and welcome to the Pregnancy Process Podcast, a show designed to help you navigate the hugely transformative journey to motherhood, where you'll hear the unique experience of experts in this area and the incredible stories of women sharing their conception, pregnancy, and postnatal journeys so that you can have a healthier, more informed pregnancy. In today's episode, I talk to Soma Shakti founder Daniela Prema. Daniela is a Partera, birth keeper, Ayurvedic practitioner, childbirth educator, and sacred birthing mentor. In this transformative episode, we explore Ayurvedic practices, traditional ceremonies, and the significant role of altered states of consciousness in undisturbed births, as Daniela shares invaluable insights into preparing both body and soul for conception, childbirth, and the postpartum journey. And you'll learn about the empowering potential of family-centered birthing environments that foster deep, intuitive connections between mother and baby and honor both the physical and spiritual dimensions of bringing life into the world. Danny, thank you so much for your time today. It is fantastic to have you here with us.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for your time. I'm very happy and grateful to be here today.
I know, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you're a Partera, you're a birth keeper, you're an Ayurvedic practitioner, a childbirth educator, and sacred birthing mentor. And some of these areas, like being an Ayurvedic practitioner, are more commonly known these days. And some others, like a Partera and a sacred birthing mentor, less commonly known. And if it's okay with you, I'd really like to start with your own personal journey to becoming a women's health and maternal care specialist. But I'd especially like to know about the role of a partera. So can we talk about your journey to getting where you are today? Because there's a lot of aspects that, like I said, aren't that commonly known. So I think it's a really good place to start so people get an understanding of where you're coming from.
Thank you, Tammy. And yes, partera is how they call it, how they call midwife in South America, Latin America. And I've been studying traditional midwifery with beautiful mentors, beautiful teachers, and bringing that into my wisdom in supporting women. And here in Australia, I am not a licensed midwife, like I didn't go to midwifery school. Like I've learned midwifery in a different way, in a, I would say, like more ancestral way, and it's something that I'm continuously doing, but I can't practice that here. So here I offer my services more as a doula, as a birth doula, and as a birth keeper. And I weave that with my Ayurvedic studies as well. So I help women, like sometimes from fertility through conception, pregnancy, postpartum, and then into motherhood.
And so a partera is a traditional midwife in more Latin America. So just in terms of that, because obviously this is quite a new concept to me, and I'm sure the same as people listening, do you go through the same type of midwifery school as they would here, or is it quite different?
So there's different types of midwives, right? Like
Mhm.
in Latin America. So there is the autonomous partera, that is someone that has done self-study, and then her community has considered her, make her partera, like she's been just in births. And then there are parteras that they just learned from an older partera. And yes, so there's this type of more like ancestral way or traditional way. They call them also traditional parteras,
Mhm.
that they learn in a different way, right? Like not in a school. But then there are the nurse parteras that are like here, like the midwifery, that you go to a midwifery school, you learn, and then you can practice. So in Latin America, it's a little bit different, and they see the role of a partera as a someone not only that will support the birth, but it will support everything, like a healer, like the healer of the community. So if someone has a tummy ache or a headache, like you would go to the partera to help you and to support you with herbs and rituals and ceremonies. For me, I've been really blessed to have teachers that are traditional parteras, so that they've learned not in school, right? They learn differently, and I've been guided by them, but also through my own calling. There is a inner calling in my heart to be of service to women and to hold them in this sacred way. So yes, and I chose to go that path instead of the approach that is just more here, that is going to school and then
like the more
becoming a
conventional
midwife.
style. And something that
Yeah.
you just said then really is so beautiful, because you're talking about that inner calling. And I actually truly believe that women that work in this space, like women who support other women in some capacity through this journey, because like you're saying, it is a bit of a sacred journey. I truly believe that there is some inner calling that calls you to do this type of work. So I'm very aligned with that whole idea.
Yes.
In terms of all that and drawing from your various traditional methods, you do support women across conception, pregnancy, birth, and their postpartum journeys. And it's quite all encompassing, given that you've got your Ayurvedic practitioner, childbirth educator, all types of things melded into one. But if we can start with preconception and conception, what kind of techniques and methods would you use to support women during that particular time, and why?
I would say, like, different women come for a different reason. Like one group is because they are actually having fertility difficulties, and nowadays I'm seeing it more and seeing it in young people as well, like very young, like in their 20s, and there's like infertility. So in this case scenario, like we worked on understanding what's happening, why is this, why the fertility, there is a disharmony or a problem, and working with both partners if it's something that we don't know who is having that difficulty in that moment. And first usually is a detox, so we go through detox and then we go through herbs, and I use more the Ayurvedic wisdom. So sometimes for women they have to go, or men both, panchakarma. So panchakarma is like the process of detoxification of the body, and ideally you want to do panchakarma like both partners before you try to conceive, right? So we are like really going deep in detoxifying our body, our system, and then we are building the immunity, we are building the fertility. So first we detoxify and then we build. So that can take quite some time, and it's really a beautiful process because we are really healing deeply. But then there is also the other women that come to me that they don't have any fertility difficulty, but they want to do conscious conception. So they're choosing to prepare their body, prepare their mind, their soul to bring that baby into this world. So that's also a beautiful opportunity, and we would work a bit differently, right? So depending on what is the intention. And yes, and I do a lot of also fertility massage, like womb massage, helping also put the womb in its right place, and supporting the ovaries and bringing herbs for increasing fertility, and also working of course with the emotional component as well. And I love when also dads want to join. That's also really beautiful because most of the time is women, but sometimes you have both that they are like, okay, we want to do this together. So I held them like through that journey. And then I've had a few mothers that the day that they come for the fertility massage, like usually we do it in the ovulation time, and they conceive the day after their fertility massage.
That's amazing,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
The idea of conscious conception. Can we delve a little deeper into that? Because that's something that maybe a lot of people, they may have the idea that conscious conception just is surrounding the idea that they're planned. It's like planned parenting, right? Or planned conception. But I feel like there's something deeper around the conscious conception that's not just about it being planned. Yeah. Can we talk a little
Yeah.
bit to that?
Yes. So the way that I see it is that we prepare our body with the intention of bringing a soul into this world. And we are preparing our body, not only the physical body, but the spiritual body, to be able to be parent to this being that we are calling in. So I see it in as a preparation, right? But then there is the part of letting go, the part of trusting that then that soul will choose to come when the time is right. So I love that of preparing, having the intention, having the ritual, but then letting go. And yeah, so that's work with it.
Hmm.
Instead of having a date, like also letting go of the date, letting go of that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part and parcel of letting go of the stress that some people really feel around this journey. Now, you also mentioned detoxification when you're in that conception, preconception journey. Can we go a little bit deeper into what that actually, because you mentioned herbs and a few other things, but I feel like that detoxification with the way that we live these days, we're surrounded by toxic environments and foods, and even sometimes the water that we drink isn't that good for us. So it'd be really good to get an understanding around what that detoxification process might look like from an Ayurvedic perspective around conception and preconception.
From an Ayurvedic perspective, right, if we go into more like the traditional, like Ayurveda, so there is what I said before, like the pancha karma, right? So pancha means five, and karma is actions. So we prepare our body to go through these actions, right? That is to detoxify certain parts of our body. So, for example, one of them is called virechana. So we prepare the body with eating certain types of food, and then we give a herb that will just make the person, like, it's like a purgative, right? So like really cleansing all the small intestine and cleansing the liver, like all of that. Then there is another type of action that is called basti. So this is enema. So then we give enema to the person. To be honest, like enema is one of the, with medicated oils, is one of the best things to do for people that are having fertility difficulties. And there's like big reason for that. We can go deeper if you would like. But yeah, so there's one, so virechana, bastis, then there is rakta moksha, and you don't have to do all these five. It depends on the imbalance that, everybody, it's very holistic, and we see one individual. So rakta moksha is when you bloodletting, so take like a leech, and then it takes the blood, like it removes the toxic blood. And this would be for people that have more inflammations or skin problems and things like that. And then there is vamana, that is vomiting. So then it's also like preparing the person, the body, with certain foods, and then you give a herb that helps with the vomit. And this will be for people that have more like problems in their lung, chest, congestion, mucus. So it's not for everyone. It's like specific, and I've seen it work amazingly. Yes. So but in Ayurveda, like this is what usually you do. Like you get these sort of treatments, you get massage, herbs, and yeah, and you do one of these actions, or a couple of them. And then there is the period called Rasayana, that is like the rejuvenative period, where we start building the bodily tissues back, building the strength, the immunity, the fertility of the individual. Yeah.
That
So it's a big process. Ideally, like for this, like when someone comes to me and they're like, really, we want to do panchakarma, we want to do a big detoxification, I would advise them to go to India. And I have beautiful teachers and doctors that they have their clinic there. So they go, and then they go into this process deeply. With me, it would be something much more simpler. Still very, I would say, deep, but simpler in a way.
I have to say, when you
Yeah.
say enema, it sounds so much nicer, doesn't it?
The
Yeah,
basti.
it sounds so much nicer when you say it. Can we talk
Yes.
about that a little bit? I'm personally very interested in all of this stuff. So
Yeah.
I shouldn't really be using the podcast as a personal self-exploratory kind of thing. But, while I'm sitting in front of you, why don't we talk about this?
So basti. So okay. So in Ayurveda and many other traditional, like ancient wisdoms, they talk about the elements, right? So Ayurveda talks about the five elements. So the five elements being ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So those are the five elements. And then they talk about the doshas, which is a way of categorizing each of these elements. So vata dosha is the ether and air element, right? And what they say from the Ayurvedic text is that when vata is imbalanced, there will be a problem like with infertility. So that's one of the root causes of this. Or sometimes it's just not stable, right? Because it's the wind, it's the earth, it's movable. So sometimes they can't hold the fetus, right? So they can get miscarriages, right? Because also vata controls the downward movement of the body, right? So if that downward movement is not balanced, then it will continue to happen, right? The miscarriage, like you want to be able to hold. So the bastis, because vata, also the seat of vata is in the large intestine, and it's like in around the pelvis, the hip area. The bastis is the best medicine for vata, right? And also like what Ayurveda says, like attracts and opposite brings balance. So vata, if we think about the air, is drying, it's cold, it's movable, it's subtle. So we use the opposite qualities, for example, oil that is heavy, that is hydrating, that is like lubricating. So we use the opposite quality to bring that balance. So this
So
is why best is wonderful.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating. I could listen to you talk about this kind of stuff all day. I really could. Now, another thing that you do, which I think is incredible and along the same lines, is your pregnancy circles. So I
Mm.
know that you hold these for people in your surrounding suburb. So if I was to come to one of these, what would I expect, and why do you believe these are so important to a woman's pregnancy journey?
Yeah, yes, the pregnancy circles, I offer them every month, and it's just so beautiful. Like the community is just growing, and it's just a place where, how can I explain? Like, it's a sacred space to share any fears that they have, any doubts, but also to create empowerment. Like, my circles are really much about self-directing the pregnancy, self-directing birth, self-directing the postpartum. So I'm really telling, when a woman comes, is you can birth your baby, you know how to birth your baby, right? And I'm bringing that empowerment. And I've had a few mothers that come to me and they're like, oh, I'm planning elective cesarean. And sometimes when they tell me that, I'm thinking, oh, it's interesting. Why did you choose to come to this circle? Because I talk very differently, like in that way. And then at the end, they end up having a beautiful home birth. So I've seen it really bringing a lot of light into women, but also the beauty is that a lot of the women that came, that now they have their babies, they are still coming, and then they are sharing their stories with the new pregnant women that are coming. So they are empowering them so deeply, and the community is just holding them with so much love. And yeah, like I'm so deeply grateful to see the transformation of all these women, that I've seen them since they were pregnant, and now they have their babies, and now they're holding that space for other women. It's really beautiful. And then in their postpartum, they're all helping each other. We do meal trains. So the mama that gives birth is receiving meals every day for as long as possible. So it's really beautiful.
Mm, that's lovely, isn't it? That's such a huge journey from wanting to or opting for an elective C-section to then coming to a pregnancy circle and going on that journey all the way through that, because it would be such a psychological journey as well, right? And then ending up as a home birth. That's a big journey. So there's obviously something bigger going on there that allows for
Definitely.
that to happen, because that's a mental journey, that's an emotional journey, it's also a physical journey. So
And you're seeing also sisters around you that they're telling their stories that they did it, and then the other one, I did it. Oh, so I can do it as well. I had another mom. She wasn't sure if she wanted to be with an obstetrician or birth in the hospital, and then at the end she had a free birth. So there's many stories like that.
what's a free birth?
So free birth is, I would say, that is women that are wanting to birth outside the system,
Mm-hmm.
and they're choosing to birth outside the system. And sometimes this can mean just she and her partner, or maybe sometimes with a doula or a sister to witness her in that transformation, but they don't want any, I would say, medical carer, or yeah, like they just want to be out of the system.
Yeah, that is a big journey, isn't it? A lot of that has got to do with fear as well. So, obviously, being surrounded by women sharing beautiful, positive, empowering birth stories, rather than hearing all of the negative, fearful
Yeah.
journeys of the birth trauma. There's a lot of psychological value when it comes to not fearing the birth, in hearing other women's positive stories. Because I think so many people, it's almost like people are afraid to share their beautiful stories, or they don't want to, because of so many women that don't have those stories. It's almost like I can liken that to mums that have good sleepers, the mums in the postpartum journey that have great sleepers, and their babies are sleeping through the night really early and they're getting lots of rest, and they almost don't want to share because there's a bit of guilt surrounding the fact that maybe they had a really beautiful birth, or their baby is a really good sleeper, yet they're surrounded by other people that haven't had that experience, and they maybe don't feel comfortable sharing it because they don't want other women to feel lacking or something like that. So the fact that there are spaces that can share beautiful birth stories, because there are some amazing birth stories out there, and we hear so
Yeah.
much of the negative, so it's lovely.
Yeah. And that's something we talk a lot in our pregnancy circle, because sometimes what happens is that when someone is pregnant and then she's walking in the street, and then someone will start telling them negative stories, right? Or things that you don't want to hear when you're pregnant. And we really talk about protecting our field, right? Like we want to protect our field, and it's also we want to share with others that when we see a pregnant woman, instead of bringing the fear, or are you crazy, why did you think about a home birth, this can happen, this could happen, maybe talk about the positive aspects, and just protecting her, like protecting her energy. Like the pregnant woman, she's very open and very sensitive, so protecting her.
Mm.
Mm.
So, in terms of that, when it comes to birthing in the more traditional, non conventional, non medicalized way, how do you support women through this?
As a birth doula, if they would want me in the environment, I would be there as a birth doula. It's different when someone wants to free birth. They are taking full responsibility of their choice. For me, to be honest, I feel for me is the way that I can work with women, or serve women actually, in the most authentic possible way for my heart. Because when someone is free birthing, then they are taking their responsibility. And for example, if I'm in a birth and then I see that something is going a little bit, there's some red flags, right? Let's say this, because I am not a midwife, I can tell them, right? I can share, look, these are some red flags. This is a reason that a midwife would transfer you. But because I have with the family a soul level connection, a transparency, I can tell them, I will support you in whatever decision you want to make. If that means you want to go to the hospital, we go. If that means you want to stay, then I stay here. and then the parents are the ones that make the decision how their journey, that what they want. So for me, because I don't have insurance, I'm not a midwife, I'm just a doula or a sister, right? I'm a woman witnessing their transformation and holding them in the choices that they want to make. So I feel for me that's the most, for me, to serve women in with like integrity for me, right?
So that's interesting, right? So are there to help support them mostly, and every single decision and directive is made completely by them. And I think that's interesting because I've had a few conversations around this recently, that consent piece. There
Yes.
seems to be in some environments, in some situations. I'm not saying it's with everything, because I also believe that there are so many obstetricians and midwives out there doing beautiful jobs. So it's not at all
100%.
against
100%.
them, but there are certainly some situations where women's consent hasn't really been fully given for things to happen to her body. And that's why we're seeing such high statistics around birth trauma and around PTSD from women giving birth. So I think that consent piece right there, and really just giving the ultimate decision making to the parent, I think that's amazing, isn't it? Now,
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. And also bringing birth back to the family. I really believe that that's where birth really belongs. And before, we used to all guard birth, right? Like in, for example, in the Andes, right? In the Sacred Valley, there's some traditions that the partera, right? They have to find, for example, if they're caring for a family and the mother is starting to give birth, and the partera, as she's going to the house of the mother, she has to receive a sign that she's meant to be in the birth. And if she doesn't receive any sign, she has to tell the husband, the partner, that she didn't receive any sign. So then the partner would be the one guarding the birth, like she was not meant to be on the birth. And I feel that this is something that sometimes we forget, how sacred it is to birth, and how sacred it is to bring a baby into this world. And also the person that is going to receive our baby, there, like, I believe there is a deep connection, right? So there's just questions, even going, we can go even deeper, like when we do a yoni exam, we are touching the baby's head, right? So is it really our honor to touch the baby's head for the first time? I don't know. Does it have to be something that we do all the time? I don't know. I don't know. Me as a mother, I don't want anyone's hands to touch my baby's head for the first time except my hands or my husband, right? So this is just things that we have forgotten, the sacredness of what it is to give birth and to bring a baby into this world. So all these practices and like free birth, it's all about bringing that back in a way.
I love that, because I think now I have to be careful here because I don't want to go on an anti-patriarchy rant here.
No, of
But
course not. I
I
understand.
also believe when we're starting to talk in these realms, I feel like once the male became involved in birthing, which is when things became a bit more medicalized, the doctors started handling things, then a lot of these more traditional ways and more sacred ways of doing things changed. So I like to see that we are starting to move a little bit more back into that area, because it is incredible as women and it's very empowering as women. And I think we shouldn't be taking away from that. But when it comes to birthing, and I know in our discussions, you've mentioned accessing different states of consciousness during the ritual of birth. Can we talk a little bit more in depth around what this means and how you might actually go about accessing those deeper states of consciousness during your birth?
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, it's something I speak a lot on my circles, but it's about when we go into the birth realm, like naturally our body is giving us all these hormones and chemicals that are allowing us to go into altered states of consciousness, right? So if we think like now we are in the beta right mind, like our heart beats, our brain moves in cycles, in wavelengths. Beta, like it's really fast, it's just moving quickly, and we are talking and we are thinking and talking, and it's just that moment. Then if we go into a bit of a deeper state, we go into alpha, so the waves start to be like more, starts to go slower, and then it goes deeper, right? We can go into theta and then delta. So this is what happens in the birth realm when we are able, when birth is undisturbed and the mother can go deep into herself. She can go into these altered states of consciousness. So she's not here, right? Like she's not present, she's going deep. She's receiving messages, she's receiving messages from the cosmos, messages of her baby. So she knows how her baby is. Like when a mother is able to access those states, she will know if there is something wrong with her baby. She will be the first one to tell you, there's something wrong with my baby, I have to go somewhere. She knows. But for that to happen, she has to be undisturbed, unobserved, in a warm environment, in darkness. So in a hospital environment, it's a little bit difficult, right, to achieve that. It is possible, but it's a bit more difficult. Those altered states of consciousness are the ones that are helping us go deeper and birth our babies.
All of these things that you're talking about, they're such beautiful concepts, and to know that people are out there doing them, I think it's incredible. And when we talk about birthing, we can't really get past the placenta, right? So obviously that's another stage of the birth. And in many cultures, the placenta holds a very spiritual or sacred meaning, or has a sacred meaning to the ritual of birth and what that means. And can we talk a little bit about your beliefs and practices around the placenta?
Yes. Wow, the placenta, oh my goodness. I always tell a mother to just connect so deeply with the placenta of her baby, because in in my tradition, in my culture, we see the placenta as the first mother to our baby, right? Our baby is receiving all the nutrients, it's receiving life through the placenta. So we really honor this organ, this sacred organ. And in some cultures, so you want to keep the placenta attached to baby for as long as possible, right? Like we want that. And so the delay cord clapping, that's one thing, but also maintaining that sacredness, that oneness with baby for as long as possible. Some cultures talk about they want cut the placenta and the cord. Others, they do the burning of the cord. And then there's also the lotus birth, that you just leave them connected until the cord falls by itself. And that can take 4 or 5 days. But in my tradition, in my culture, what they say is that it's important to cut the cord, because it's the first energy cord that you cut in your life. And we want to do that. And it's actually the hardest cord to cut, because it's a physical cord, and it was the mother of the baby, right, for those 9, 10 months, seeing it and then giving it back to the earth. That's what my tradition does, and I really love that. And I've, with both my daughters, every time I give the placenta back to Mother Earth in ceremony, I can see how the earth, the energy is really special. It's really potent. It's like potent and beautiful and intense, and yeah. So that's what I usually recommend. There's other cultures that they eat a little bit of placenta, and like when they dehydrate it and put it in capsules and things like that, would be more, I think, the Chinese medicine perspective. But for me, like I always, that's something we talk also a lot in our circles. What are you going to do with the placenta of baby? And it's really important to have that conversation, because It's so sad when the placenta is just thrown away.
I like the idea of it being planted or being given back to the earth or putting it in a specific pot with like a plant with it to grow with the baby. I love that idea where the placenta is given back to the earth, but also given a tree to grow along with the child. I think that's so beautiful. Now, you've spoken about supporting women through this journey with full integrity. So, what does that look like in, say, the postpartum stage?
So in the postpartum, I always think that if the mama is well, if she's feeling good, the baby will be as well. So for me, is hold her through that time, because postpartum is the integration of the birth journey. Depending on how her birth was, it's an integration and time. So I make sure I do a meal train for her with recipes like following the Ayurvedic approach. And I try to share it with her friends, her like with her community, and also with the women in the Soma Shakti community. We have a few volunteers that just help with women when they give birth. So we offer them meals and try for her to have as like food for many days as possible as we can. So that's one way. I also give her body treatments. We do herbal bath in a way that just supports that healing process as well. Seeds bath, yoni steaming, belly binding, like so many different beautiful ancient technology, right? That is still available today. So I use that for her and really holding her in love, because postpartum is a tender time, like very tender. So really making sure that she's well held and well supported.
It's interesting that you talk about yoni steaming because that's definitely something that I've been starting to see a lot more of, especially in the more pelvic health therapy kind of circles as well. So that's quite interesting. That's really coming from a very traditional cultural
Yeah.
background. Now, many kind of, let's call them conventional midwives who practice in the home birth setting that I've spoken to believe that our current model or our current medical system is broken. And you talk about your beliefs around the art of midwifery as we know it getting
Mm.
lost. Can we talk a little bit about, from your perspective, where you believe things need to change?
For me, is to really bring birth back to the family. I think that's really important, and for women to self-direct their journey, self-direct their prenatal, self-direct their birth experience. If they don't want their baby's heart monitor to be listened to, then can we support that? Can we say, okay, can we trust her in her experience, in her directing her experience? So for me, it's really bringing birth back to the family and back to women. That's, I think, number one. And for midwives, it's to be with women, right? To like, that's what a midwife, like what it, the name is, to be with women. So, can we do that? Can we serve women in full integrity, trusting them, trusting their bodies, trusting their intuition? Yeah. For
Hmm.
them to
So,
guide us, I think that's for them to guide us. Yeah. And when we go into that birth, if we are invited into the birth, then it's an honor, right? If we're able to be there and really taking it as an honor, as what it is that is so sacred. My teacher says something that I love. She says, midwives should give an amazing prenatal, an amazing postnatal, and they shouldn't be at the birth.
yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? It is very removed from what's happening now, where in some women's births, you may not even know the midwife that's there on the
Yeah.
day.
No, I've had in my circle, it comes a lot. I've had many mothers coming to me, and they are like in their 30 weeks or something, and they tell me, I don't feel connected with my midwife. I don't feel connected. Maybe I should change midwife. And they're like, what? Or they are, yeah, they're having trouble connecting with their midwives. And sometimes they have many different women to care for, and they can't give them like that full emotional support, or I don't know. And it's big, right? It's to see everything with compassion, for we are all doing the best that we can. And I would just invite midwives, invite women to share what they need, and for midwives also to be available to the needs of the women as much as they can, of course.
Now, just a question in regards to your methods of working. Can this be combined with the more conventional hospital based births? Because I know previously you said some centers can get it close to how you would like it. Is there any kind of in between that you can combine your more traditional methods with the kind of hospital based births? Because previously you mentioned that there are some hospitals that provide the darker, quieter areas for birthing, and that's really what you require with yours. Is there any way that you can join them together and have you working with someone in a hospital based system?
Yeah, like I would work as a doula, right? As the emotional supporter of the birthing woman. And I will try to create those spaces for her as much as I can. And yes, so it's not, to be honest, like for me, I don't work with women that want to birth in the hospital. And it's just because it's a different energy, and it's not the energy that I want to tap into. And this is, it's just, of course, if I have a mother that I'm caring for her and then she's transferred into the hospital, then of course I will go and take care of her. But I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't work as a birth doula in a hospital.
And so, in those circumstances, how often would you be working with a woman who does need to be transferred into a hospital setting?
Thank God, for the moment I haven't had that experience. I thank God, the birth that I've been, they've all been at home safely, and also the free birth that I've attended, they've been at home. And yeah.
Now, you obviously have
Yes.
children
Yeah.
yourself. Yes. Are you able to share a little bit from your own birth
Yes, of course.
stories?
So what I was gonna share before is that, so with my daughter, my first one with Uma, I was going to free birth, and that was the intention. But then we went to, it was a long birth, it was a 4-day labor. And on the third morning, on the third morning, we went to the birth center. And then I could just see how the cascade of interventions, they just started to happen. And yeah, and I wouldn't want, to be honest, what I've experienced with her, I don't wish any woman to have to go through what I had to go, like in my most vulnerable time when I was laboring in the birth center. I was naked, like going through my process, and I had doctors coming in and out and telling me, like, you've been in labor for too long, like your baby is small, like she can be born dead. And I would be fighting and telling them, please leave the room, please go away. I was just really, yes, I don't wish anyone to go through that. And with my second daughter, of course, I said I'm going to free birth again. And yeah, and then she was born here at home. And it was just 6 hours of labor. And yeah,
So you were on your own for the
my husband was
delivery.
here. And then, but he was like, I was a lot by myself during the labor, because he was like fixing the pool, fixing stuff. And then around 5 in the morning, like he felt that our daughter was going to wake up. So he called two of my friends to come to be with me. And they came. And then 20 minutes later, I birthed Maya. And yeah, and it was completely undisturbed. My dear friends, they didn't do anything. They were just holding my hand and just witnessing me. They didn't tell me nothing. And for me, that was really, I'm so grateful, because completely had to be in full contact, like with my intuition, connected with my body, following my body, connected with my baby. Like I didn't had anyone to tell me you can't go now to the pool, or you have to go in this position, or you have to do nothing. So that it was completely undisturbed, and it was powerful. It was powerful. Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it? Now, I have one or two more questions before we wrap up, if that's okay. And one of them is just something, because you've talked so much about more traditional style therapies, ceremonies, things that you do. But are there any traditional ceremonies that you participate in, that you hold, that you take women in this journey through that maybe we haven't covered?
For me, it depends on, like, when I have women coming when they have a certain intention, and I support them in that intention. And I do ceremonies, like I offer support with the mother's blessing. So when a woman's want to have their mother's blessing, I can help facilitate that. I can help facilitate also for the placenta, to bury the placenta, and the closing of the bones is a ritual ceremony that I offer as well. And yes, I think when there is any intention, I can help facilitate that, connected, of course, with my heart and ancestors, and for the women to connect with their hearts, and we can create something beautiful.
I'm asking because I saw something on your Instagram recently.
The temescal. Yeah, so I built from my tradition. The sweat lodge, the temescal, is like returning back to the earth, returning back to the womb of Mother Earth. And we do that for postpartum. So sometimes we build a temescal with the intention to give birth there. So that's also what we can do. But for postpartum, it's just incredible. It's really incredible. And yeah, it's healing. It's so healing. So I did that for my pregnancy. Like I built my temescal for my pregnancy and then my postpartum. And I was talking to my husband to see if we can create another one with the intention to hold the community. So when women come, we can do the temescal for women and have, yeah.
And what does that ceremony entail?
So it's a sweat lodge. It's a sweat lodge. And
Mhm.
with the postpartum, that is the one that I've worked the most, we bathe the women with herbal bath, like she's in the steam. So we are creating that going back into the womb energy. So naturally, she's going to go back into her birth. So it's like her remembering. So she will remember the birth of the baby, and if there was a part of that the soul of her left, right? Because in those intense moments, we say that the soul doesn't stay in the body but goes, like a part of the soul goes somewhere else. So we call back that in, and then after that we do the closing of the bones, right? So it's part of the closing of the bone ceremony. Traditionally we do it with the sweat lodge.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it? So incredible. And I have one last question for you before we go, and that would be, what's the one thing you wish all women knew before having a baby?
Yes, that they are powerful and that they are born to give birth. They are born to give birth.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time today.
you.
It's been such a pleasure, and it's been lovely to see little Maya as
Thank you
well.
so much.
The little hand, it was like she knew we were talking about her. A little hand just popped up and was like, "Yep,
Yeah.
I'm here." So thank you so much for your time. It has been fantastic to have you, and I've loved this conversation so much. It's so wonderful to hear about the other avenues that women can birth that aren't those medicalized hospital based births. And I think it's really important for women to know that these options are out there for them if they'd like to follow that
Yeah. Yes, of
path.
course. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And if you're hearing this message, I want to say a huge thank you, because it means that you've listened to this entire episode. Of course, if you have any questions about the things that we covered in this episode, or want to know more about me or my other projects, you can find me on YouTube and Instagram at The Pregnancy Process. For those currently in their conception or pregnancy journey, you can apply to join my complimentary but private community, the Preggy Training Crew. And you'll find my community application and social media links in the episode description. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, I absolutely encourage you to share it with other women just like you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.